Hello and welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast.
At what age do we learn how to have better conversations? At what age do we learn to have better conversations with ourselves?
Howdy doody, Radiator Springs. It's me, Lightning McQueen, the host of the Junkyard Love Podcast. I'm super happy you're here. Today is day 4 of Sober October for me. I'm rocking it with my homies. A few people have been on the podcast: Brandon Cruz, Zach Wild, Nasty Nate, Matt Young. I got a couple other homies. The next episode with Connor Anschutz, he's on it too. Shout out to everybody who's participating in whatever your version of Sober October is. I think the point is just to get a little handle on our habits, right? You know, we're just a ball of habits. We just do the same things all the time. And when you want to step into your future self and feed the future you rather than the right now you, really beautiful things can happen. So day 4, I'm feeling pretty good. I wish I had some coffee. We're doing no caffeine. I've got no caffeine, no alcohol, no masturbation, and no weed. So I'm not sleeping super well. The caffeine would help, but I'm going to be just fine. I'm going to be all right. I'm not going to die. Everything's good. And I just want to wish that to anybody else who's going through their version of Sober October. If you want to start your own version, just do it. Pick a friend. Don't pick a friend. Put some dates on your calendar and just stick to it. Just do your thing. 2 weeks of no notifications going to your phone. 1 week of trying to sleep on your back rather than on your stomach. Doing 5 minutes of stretches before bed for 14 days. Whatever it is in your life, try to drink a gallon of water a day, or maybe a cup of water a day if you don't drink any water, which is ridiculous. You should drink more water. Just set some goals for yourself. If you don't have anything right now, I mean, COVID is kicking our asses, man. Don't let it keep kicking your ass. If you've got some boundaries that you want to set, if you've got some structure that you need to build for yourself, I'm just here with my friends, to say, you got this. You can do it. Stick to it. You can do this. Let's get rolling with the podcast. I'm super happy y'all are here. Today it's with Anna Cantwell. She is just wonderful. Everything about the mind, everything about the spirit, everything about self-love, mindfulness. She's a coach. She's a meditation teacher. She's a yoga instructor. She taught writing. She's taught young children. Just super blessed to have her on today. Crazy amounts of golden, fantastic nuggets in this podcast. I'm not on social media right now. So if you did enjoy this episode, if you enjoyed maybe a clip of it, if you enjoyed just some of it, whatever, if you could share on your social media or just send to a friend, whatever, the more people that we can help with these fantastically wonderful conversations, the better, So take care of yourselves, challenge yourself a little bit, set a goal and stick to it. You got this. Let's go. Anna, hello.
Hi, Jake.
How are you?
I'm doing swell. I woke up to the most beautiful sunrise, probably one of the most beautiful I've ever seen in my whole life, and it was a whole moment. So I'm feeling really good.
That sounds amazing. Was it tinted like red or orange because of the smoke? Is there any smoke over where you're at?
There was the past couple of days, but not so much today. I will say a few days ago, it was totally gray. And then the sun was just this bright, like pink orange orb. It looks like, a hole in the sky. It makes you feel like you're in the Truman Show or something.
Right.
And it's very, very Star Wars kind of esque. Really cool. And then also, it's mixed feelings, right? There's these fires ablaze, and then you're also seeing this beautiful, byproduct of it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's almost when you see like a red sun or a red moon or any of those things, like when it's fire, you're like, do I feel guilty about saying that's beautiful in a strange way?
Yes, absolutely. That's such a funny, such a funny concept, very like, paradoxical.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about knowledge though. Once you like you could see it and be like, wow, that's just mesmerizing. But then once you learn the knowledge of it being painful for other people, it's like, oh, I don't know what to feel now. But yeah, overall beautiful. I was down in like Redding, Lake Shasta for a few days.
Ooh.
And yeah, I love it there. We go on vacation fairly often down there. In the mornings, it was just like I'd get up to go on my run, and it's like, oh, it's smoky, but then you just see the craziest red morning sun ever. And so it's distracting and mesmerizing and wonderful. But I'm back home now, and it's kind of just muggy, and there's a little bit of smoke in the air. It seems like the fires are somewhat getting under control, so that's always good to hear. Um, Anna, so let's tell people of the Junkyard Love podcast, the listeners. So we actually got linked up through a friend, Chase. I've worked with Chase before. Um, he's a good guy. He's a stud. He just worked on the David Blaine's Ascension. Did you see that?
Oh my gosh, it's like up, but to the nth degree. Yes, really, really just beautiful, beautiful and badass and strangely hopeful. See,
Yeah, I
see
felt that.
David Blaine float through the sky just thousands of feet up with these big, colorful balloons. It's wild.
Yeah. I love he was talking about I watched him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about how he really wanted that image. Like he didn't want like a giant visible harness from a distance. He didn't want like a bunch of like stuff showing. Like they have a couple like GoPros and stuff you can kind of see, but he
Mhm.
really just wanted that like that still shot of just holding one hand on. I just thought that was so cool. I'm like, dude, you're such an artist. You know, he's a magician, but he's really an artist, truthfully, like creating something that only he has done.
Oh my gosh. And what an experience. I was talking to a friend about it, and it was just a nice, not to him small, but to in the grand scheme of things, a small symbol of hope for the time. I thought that was a beautiful
Mm.
interpretation.
Indeed. Yeah. And then I mean the fact that Chase was working on it, I mean he's one of the best. I've worked with him on a couple of shows. I've worked with him on a few student organizations years ago, and then we've actually worked together on like a hernia society, like some hernia conference at some point. So we have like funny stories together, but great guy. It's super cool that we got linked up. I love that this podcast seems to just like it just connects me with people that I never thought that I would have the opportunity to connect to. And
Mm.
uh, it's just like it's really great. You know, we can talk about synchronicities later, but those are what I like to sprinkle on. I'm like, well, hey, this came up, and I'm not expecting it, but I think that I need to say yes to it. You know, that's how I've been feeling.
I love it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful web, because I feel like the conversations that Chase and I already have are so just podcast level. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is awesome. Just talking about some of the most rich and beautiful, deep concepts in all of the universe, and the fun stuff like synchronicities, like last night. So just for context, I recently moved to Joshua Tree from LA. So out into the high desert, and for a myriad of reasons, and just really looking for some spaciousness and deeper connection to nature. It's really important to me. And I had one of those, those things for your car that reflect the sun so it doesn't get, hot as hell.
Right.
That was in our house, and I was like, oh, I should go put this in the car right now. So I took it out last night to put it in the car, and the second that I stepped out, I looked up into the sky, and I saw the most beautiful, longest shooting star I have ever seen. I was just sitting there, mouth agape, just dumbfounded, completely astounded as it just travels. It felt like it traveled so far and then just hung there, just saying, hey girl, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Wow, dude, that's great. You know what's funny? I feel like I always have like I'm whenever I'm looking at the stars, I'm always enjoying it. But there's a thing in the back of my mind. I'm like, man, I wish one of those was shooting right now. It'd be cool to see a shooting star. Like you're always like kind of wishing for it. But then that's the thing is you just went outside to go get a sunscreen thing, and you look up, and of course there it is. And also, isn't it crazy to think of the science behind like when you see a shooting star, it's like billions of years old, or like it's isn't happening anywhere near the same time frame as you. That's just mind blowing.
Yes. And someone recently told me that it's like frozen, and it's the water that's burning off through, I don't know. I didn't fully understand it, and I don't need to fully
Yeah.
understand it
Yeah.
to appreciate it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just, it's so funny how, we could be so complicated creatures, but then also things like a shooting star or just the stars or a waterfall, we're just like, oh, amazing. Just get lost in it, it's so great.
Totally. And it's a concept that I love that Eckhart Tolle talks about a lot, that
Mm,
things like flowers, things like crystals are such beautiful representations of enlightenment because, they have, sure, some purpose, right? Pollination, whatever. But in general, flowers, pretty crystals, they're just beautiful. They're just absolutely beautiful. And the fact that we get something from admiring them
mhm.
just because they're beautiful, not because anyone or anything really made them that way, they just are. And
Yeah.
that brings us to a space of enlightenment just by being able to appreciate beauty for beauty's sake.
Yeah, totally. I like to I went on my run this morning and what I like to do, there's this cutout towards like the beginning of our town and it's this, I mean, I think it's over 100 years. I touch it all the time, I should know, but I think it's over 100 years old. They took like this big stump and they put it sideways and they put like on the rings like what year it was, like 1917,
Wow.
1924, as exact as they could, I'm sure. But like just seeing that um you know there's something about beauty that also reminds you of your insignificance like at the same time is that sounds kind of, it's not supposed to be depressing or sad, but it really is like, oh yeah, I am only here for a minute amount of time, like you feel I had another podcast guest, a life coach actually as well, and she loves saying, take me somewhere where I feel small. Rebecca Wild was her name, yeah. And I feel like when you see things that make you feel small and insignificant, there is a beauty in that. Like this, it's like a reminder that you don't know anything, and that's okay in a way.
Oh, it's so funny. This morning at the breakfast table, we were talking about insignificance and the idea that, oh, this is so depressing to be so insignificant. And I said, no, it's not at all. It's oddly relieving to
Yeah.
feel that, you know what, as much meaning as I love to infuse into life and purpose and passion, like all of that is wonderful. And my life in the grand scheme is about as long as that shooting star that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
all. And that's okay. It's wonderful, in fact.
Yeah. It makes it that much more special somehow. I mean, yeah, we have the ability as humans to give things power in that manner, but I feel like even before we give them power, there's just this knowing
Mhm.
of the power that it holds, just being kind of in the structure of time itself. Um,
Yes.
so I want to give the listeners a little bit of your background. So you can start as far as you'd like. You're in Joshua Tree now, but I want to talk about your journey with your spiritual awakening. I want to talk about yoga. I want to talk about meditation. Where does it feel like it starts for you?
December 10th, 1992. I was born. Um, no, I am one of those people who just the sense that I have, my felt sense is that I was, so to speak, born with my third eye open, meaning this, that I was very naturally attuned to the spiritual realm. I always, as early as I can remember, felt deep, deep empathy, felt deep, deep connection with nature, felt that kind of awe and enlightenment that's so needed to see beyond just our little boxes and our little spheres. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
The bigger picture. And I remember just feeling in the wind, I feel spirit. When I'm swinging on the swing set at recess, I'm matching my breath and I'm constructing universes in the clouds. That was me as a child. And it wasn't like I was some Buddha, because pretty soon I found out that I had anxiety. And I had this also highly active, that's how I like to call it, highly active mind that
Mm.
for a long time went and jumped to, I would say, somewhere around like 8 or 9 years old, kind of when the pure innocence of childhood really starts to fade away, that I felt this internal anxiety, this pressure, this what if this horrible thing happens? And my imagination kind of spun out, I guess.
Mm.
And it wasn't like I had a beautiful childhood. I had a ton of time to, and I'm so grateful for it, to play outside in nature. I was in nature a lot. I was reading a ton. And part of that really, like I said, it grew my imagination, it grew my perspective. I read so much that I feel it really gave me kind of a head start on putting myself in other people's shoes.
You
And I
you were
was,
reading like right around the age of 9, like are you talking right after that or?
oh yeah, I mean, reading as early as I can remember. I feel like
Yeah,
I was reading books at, small books at 6, and
yeah,
I
I
remember,
loved reading as well.
oh, it's like it's the best. I remember reading, things like Lord of the Rings in like fourth grade, and just
This is
and
so weird. I literally read that. Okay, I know I'm already interrupting you on your story. I'm sorry, Anna.
no,
But I
no.
feel like as you're speaking of these things, so I was born a few months before you, and I
Mhm.
felt similar. I always felt very black sheep. And then around when I was around 8 or 9, I had like that's when my like life trauma, like my family thing started happening. And
Yeah.
so it like opened me up to this whole different version of myself, and I started experiencing anxiety and those sort of things as well. Super crazy. And I literally read Lord of the Rings. I don't think it was in fourth grade, but it was somewhere around there. But yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, continue going. So you're reading, you're going through this experience, you're experiencing anxiety.
totally. So I'm, as school does, and I feel like I can also speak to this because I was a school teacher as well. That it's about deadlines, it's about getting it right, and not necessarily learning. So I really took to that. I was like, okay, we want to get it right, let's get it right. And you want to be the smart kid? Okay, let's study as much as we can, read as much as we can, be very much kind of the like good girl archetype, teacher's pet, and coming from, part of it's coming from a pure place. Part of it's coming from what I believe is my kind of intrinsic motivation. I've always been intrinsically motivated. But then, of course, I wanted, as our little egos do, to look smart and be smart. And that kind of became my identity. And that is a really delicate thing to try to uphold when you're spinning lots of plates and you are trying to just hold on or grasp on to a certain identity, whatever it is. If
Hmm.
it's the top, you want to be the best athlete, or you want to be the most extroverted, or the performer, or whatever it is. Mine was like school, getting it right. So I worked really hard, and I had all of this chronic stomach pain.
Hmm.
It was so interesting to see the direct correlation between the pressure that I was putting on myself, because I'll admit fully, there wasn't a ton of external pressure. It was a lot of it was internal pressure.
Got it.
And then some of it is just the expectation that the people in our family are high performers. So this is nothing exceptional. This is just expected, right?
Right.
And that really, it bred in me a lot of fear of making mistakes, and that inhibited what my true nature, my true essence desired, which is learning. I was always so curious, and I just wanted to learn as much as I could about as many things as I could. Of course, some subjects interested me more than
Of
others.
course.
However, I just, that insatiable curiosity was really hindered by this gripping of identity, trying to get it right, trying to, or needing to always be the best, not my best, right? Or
Mm.
not the best with my mental and physical health still intact. So really, after that, I went to college. I went from being like big fish in a little pond. I grew up in Tennessee, and with the beautiful nature and connection to animals and all of that, also came some small mindedness.
Right.
and was really religious and followed that really strictly too, because that's another thing you can get right and you can check the boxes and you can be accepted and belong.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not all coming from that, of course. However, there was really a part of me too that loved just the exploratory nature, the inquiry. And I realized that what I do now is so similar to what I was doing then. When I was as young as I can remember, seriously, like third grade, fourth grade, I was leading small groups of people and studying the Bible and journaling through that and asking questions and using it to reflect. And
Mm.
that's a lot of what I do now, just not necessarily with the Bible. I think the Bible is a beautiful text, has tons of truth and wisdom to glean, and it's not necessarily the full picture,
Yeah.
right? So once I went to college, things really, really opened up. However, I don't remember who says this is a pretty famous one. There's no coming to consciousness except through pain. I don't, I know, yeah. You want some cold truth for like
Yep.
ice cold truth first thing in the morning. That's one. And I don't believe it fully. I think that there are lots of ways of which you can come to self-awareness and consciousness, but pain is certainly one of them, and it's certainly an effective one.
Mm-hmm.
So I describe my time in college as getting kind of like body slammed by the universe, just like smackdown of trauma. I experienced several instances of sexual trauma in college that left me absolutely reeling. Of course, that didn't help the anxiety, which now is like fully spun out into fear and paranoia. It didn't, it really brought on depression and just sadness. And I was working several jobs all throughout college to pay my way and had to kind of scale back on everything because my mental health was in such a tough place. And that was a huge, huge wake up call for me that really has to come first.
Right.
So
Right.
during that time, I love that you've been talking about your runs, going on runs in the morning. There was a time when it was like you struggle to get out of bed every day. It's like that's a feat. And I told myself, okay, there has to be one thing that you do every single day. That's just one thing. And that thing was running. And it's funny now because I don't really run now. And then what I would do is every morning, 7:15, feet hit the floor, put your clothes on, just get outside, just start going.
Right.
It doesn't have to be fast. I didn't put a time limit on myself. It was just like, go for a run once a day.
Perfect.
And I found this hill in this neighborhood, this huge hill that I could run down so that I would have to run up it. I didn't have an option. And I would listen to, this is also a beautiful synchronicity, I would listen to Roar by Katy Perry on repeat.
Nice.
I would just that was my anthem. To me, it was so much about having your voice heard. And in my experiences, I felt like my voice was taken away and then I didn't get that chance to speak up for myself. And that's what that song meant to me. And that's what running up this huge ass hill every morning meant to me. And this beautiful synchronicity that I have to share is that I found out years later that Chase produced the production of Roar that was underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. That was like this epic thing. And then way after that, because I didn't even know Chase then, years later, I wrote down in a journal one night, man, I'd really like to see Katy Perry. I would love to see Katy Perry in concert. She inspired me so much. This song got me through this tough time. And the next day, Chase calls me up and said, hey, yes way. He says, hey, they're doing this show after her tour. Her tour had ended. It was 2 weeks after, doing this random pop-up show at the Ace Hotel in Los Angeles. And he said, do you want to come with me? It's VIP tickets. I said,
I guess.
yeah, I think that sounds great. So, oof, wild, wild, wild how those little pieces get kind of woven through our lives. But at that time, literally that song, that hill was my saving grace. And if I could do that in a day, I said, okay, that's a sign I'm still alive. We're still breathing. Like
Right.
I can take one more step forward. I can do this for one more day.
Okay.
And then it became, I fought kind of legal battles around this to try and seek some justice. And that was a really necessary, albeit highly re traumatizing step in the process to try to face those fears and not run from them.
Yeah.
So I felt like I really needed to do this. And it was a long process. It was a highly painful process. It was an expensive process. And at the end of it, it's very rare that those kinds of cases end up going the way that you'd like them to. And even if they do, what do you have then? Right?
Yeah. I can
It's
imagine.
really it's really tough. And so when I finished that, it was right around when I was graduating. And I decided, you know what? I've done what I can to do this. I faced up to these fears. I've leaned into, at this time, I was doing a lot of yoga. I was doing a lot of Zumba, just things to help me get back into my body.
Right.
Because that's another, side effect, of course, is like this disassociation from your body.
Mm.
And I just said, I have to leave this battle here. Who who really wins if these people are on living their lives and I'm here with depressed and anxious and all of this.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, the best thing that I can do is live a fucking awesome life.
Hell
That's
yeah.
the best thing that I can do.
Oh yeah.
At
Yeah.
the
That's so powerful. I mean, because like, what is winning in that situation? Such a. I can't even imagine. Like,
That's the question. What is winning? And
yeah.
if this thing goes this way, or if X person's life is now ruined, is that winning? Like, is it winning if you it's a really good question to ask. And
Justice is a strange thing, and yeah, I'm sure you know that very well. That's so crazy. It's super cool that you went through the yoga journey too. We'll definitely get into that because I began my disassociation journey when I was young and didn't
wow,
learn about it until like 3 years ago.
wow.
When I started 2 years ago or whatever, when I started doing my own yoga and learned anything about anything.
Wow.
Um, wow, that's so crazy. Okay, continue, carry on. So
So
after the court stuff has fizzled out, you've still been doing some yoga. Are you
yeah,
still in school after this, or was this after?
that was right when it kind of coincided with my graduation, and I felt
Right.
like, okay, let's leave. I was going to school in North Carolina. I said, let's leave this here. And what I had felt really passionate about, what was always my path, was education, psychology. How do people learn? I had learned a lot about positive psychology, and a thesis that I had written was on optimism and how
Hmm.
people who are optimistic actually, go figure, are healthier, make more money, are better leaders, all this incredible research on positive psychology. And, I was all throughout college, I was volunteering in schools. And, because of my Christian background, and my parents are very much, they're very service oriented. They have a nonprofit. I was always attuned to service. And I felt like, yes, service is a beautiful lens through which to live, right? How can I, waking up every day saying, how can I serve, right? What can I give?
Mhm.
And so I took that and decided to become a teacher. I became a school teacher. I saw this program. It was a master's program in Houston. And I thought, all right, let's try it on,
Cool. Yeah.
see how this goes. And that, I think, the distance and just being in a new place is really helpful for people that have been through something traumatic, because especially when it's really associated with a particular place, it's like constant reminders. So I was like, I got to give myself a fighting chance to really powerfully move forward. And while this was a huge step, it was still really, really tough. I was teaching at a charter school in Northeast Houston. I was 22. I was in grad school full time as well. I was living on my own for the first time, outside of college, and it was just really, really tough. The resources that you have available in schools, the pay and fighting for, some kind of livable, fair wage
Yeah.
for doing this work. And it's so funny because when I reflect on that time, it was never the kids. The kids are never the problem. The kids are far and away, they're kids, so they're just learning and figuring out so much, and they're doing the absolute best that they can, right? What I really grappled with on a daily basis was the overarching system and the structure, and saying, is this something that, no matter how well my cog is working, what is this machine doing, right? And
Like, what are we teaching them overall? Like, what are the subjects even? Are these the most important subjects? What else could we be teaching them at this like pivotal age,
oh
if we
my
wanted?
gosh, and then just getting that, like, it's so like the long-term investment thing to me is the issue with education, is that this is our future, right? So it makes so much sense to really invest in it, and it seems like the first thing that, at least in America, that we kind of skimp on is the education of our youth.
Seriously.
So it was it was really tough, and I felt like I started to just get to a point where I was so stressed. At this point, my chronic pain is
Oh, yeah.
flaring. There's a lot of also kind of toxic habits that you pick up in an environment where so many people who have really good hearts, right? Teachers they are there because they want to serve, are just trying to cope. And so there's complaining, there's drinking, there's just trying to vent, to just try to relieve some of the weight and the pressure that you feel of growing the youth. And so I'm
It's like
like,
the hardest job ever. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like,
is.
I when I see teachers, like, regardless if you're teaching, like, I don't even know any age really. I have friends who are school counselors now and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't like. When I was those kids' ages, I would have never listened to you, unfortunately. Like, and so I just like working with such a strange situation. Really, just teachers are the best example of like working with what they have, I guess, like doing the best that they can with what they have. We have such a weird structure that I really wish that we were teaching a lot of different things. I'm optimistic that we'll lean towards that way in the coming years. But
Yeah, and that's a beautiful kind of next step, because there was a teacher at my school who got to teach yoga to kids during the day, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
yeah.
So I started to connect with her, and of course the kids love it. It's getting them into their bodies, it's teaching them how to handle the emotions that are going bonkers
Hmm.
at that age, and like realistically all ages. That, it's teaching them emotional regulation. They're reading books like The Four Agreements, and I'm like, God, if I had read that in high school. I'd like to think that I would have taken to it, but maybe not. Right?
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to say. And she really inspired me. At this time, truly my saving grace was yoga. And I was going to this yoga studio that a fellow teacher of mine recommended, that had wonderful programming. Was these 40-day challenges where really the goal was to get super consistent in your practice. And then we had these weekly meetings where you'd come together and really just dive into personal development and self-inquiry. It's where I first started to learn about meditation. And God, was I a bad meditator at this
Yeah.
time. Because my mind, it just goes quick. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think when we start to think like, oh, that's bad or wrong, I'm kind of joking about the bad meditating thing.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But I couldn't sit still for 5 minutes without just throwing my hands in the air. However, and I really didn't get it at first. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I still don't get meditation, I hear you. I was literally there. I was like, how does sitting still help me? How, right? This is
I have friends who I'm just gonna like stop this part and send it like, hey, start right here. Just listen to this part because I have so many because meditation is new for me over the last few years, and I'm always I'm in my preachy stage of it. Really, I'm always trying to get everybody to try it. I'm like, you got to try it. And uh, it's such a strange concept, and it sucks, but like you just don't truly understand at the beginning, and that's kind of discouraging to hear. But I think that like if you can keep building the habit, or you can keep trying to learn knowledge about it, there is aha moments. There is things that click, and you're like, oh, I did just do the meditation. Like just because I'm not enlightened all of a sudden doesn't
Yeah,
mean that I didn't just do the meditation. You know?
totally. You don't have to be you don't have to be floating. You don't have to have some crazy transcendental experience. It's really plenty to breathe such that your nervous system shifts into the parasympathetic, because we are so often we're just living in fight or flight, and it's
Because
bucking
of
up
these
our cortisol.
things.
Oof, so much of it.
Yeah.
Alerts, alarms, all of that. It's making us feel like, think about if every second of the day you felt like a tiger was chasing you. This is the proverbial tiger, right? Is chasing you every second. That's exhausting. It's no wonder that people develop chronic illnesses, that people have adrenal fatigue, autoimmune disorder, all of these, different implications from just high levels of stress that has little to no reprieve is
Right.
horrifying to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what clicked for me, Anna, with I mean, I had a lot of crazy moments with meditation. It's been such a beautiful thing for my life. But what you were just saying about looking out for a lion or a tiger, I had read this book. I think it's Emily Fletcher with Ziva meditation, or the Z technique. But she had talked. It was something that really stuck out to me. Is like, do you really think that your body, which is made to like survive and thrive, and we're like these wonderful living biological creatures who are like the top of the food chain. We've like grown out of the food chain at this point, but basically she was saying, when you see a lion, or you're like, oh, what is that brown spot over there? Is that a lion? Am I about to die? Do I need to run? Your fingernails are like, let's not choose right now to grow. Let's send that blood to other places of the body. Let's think other thoughts. Like, so when we're basically like biologically built to survive. And then now we have this life over the last, I mean, not even 100 years, that's just changed so much.
Yes.
And now we're dealing with things of like, I can get a notification on my phone that does the exact equivalent of me seeing a lion out of the corner of my eye. So our bodies are in these states of like, your fingernails not growing, your immune system has just shut down. I mean, sure, it's correlated to inflammation, all of these things. I think that when I had heard that, I was like, oh gosh, that does kind of make sense. And then I would really start to think of, man, I do kind of get triggered by my phone. I do get triggered quickly by things. And when you're triggered, or it's we've all felt anxiety. We've all felt like that sudden sweat, that sudden like uncomfortable. You read something you don't like, you just hear some bad news, whatever it is. That part that like wakes up in your body is nothing to be ashamed of, but it is what we're dealing with, right? It's the biological truth of what we are.
Yes.
So yeah, so continue going on meditation. I really, any other advice you have for beginner meditators, I'm always like, hey guys, listen to this part.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I could say. One thing that I really want to harp on about the stress response is that your digestion stops, right? You're trying to run away from something. Digesting food doesn't mean shit.
Yeah. Let's not poop right now. Let's not do it. Yeah.
We're not doing that right now, right? And so it's to me, that was a huge source of my stomach pain. And that when I really learned how to regulate my breath throughout the day, take deeper breaths throughout the day, that absolutely, completely eliminated my chronic pain. Really, breath meditation and cannabis for pain management. Was
Wow.
got rid of it entirely, from going from people saying you will be in pain for the rest of your life, without a doubt.
I think a lot of
So
people have heard that
a lot of
from their
people
doctors
have.
because they don't know they're at the edge of what their abilities are in the nothing against doctors at all, but where I think there's so many doctors who are in a place of like it's anxiety. I just don't really know. Like you got to figure that out. However you figure that out, they're like I don't know anxiety. I'm sorry.
Totally. And it's okay that it's not in their wheelhouse, right? So we find other ways to cope. And to me, you look at anyone who is a, high performer, super successful, they will all tell you, number one thing, meditate. Truly.
Mm,
It is the simplest, just lowest hanging fruit to begin to cultivate a healthy mental state that will also, because this is something I love to discuss, is that will also affect your body and your spirit. It never will just target one part of it. Of course, it's an incredible thing to have a healthy mind, to have a resilient mind, to know when and be able to metacognate, right? To see, oh, I'm thinking about this thing. What is that? Why am I thinking this way about this thing? Is this just a very familiar pattern? Is this just the path I've gone down again and again so it feels safe, it feels comfortable? Is there another path? One of my favorite questions, and this applies for new meditators, is am I willing to see this differently? Am I willing to see this scenario in another way? Am I willing to see meditation in another way? A lot of people, I think they just think that it's just sitting there. And there's one element, sure, that is. There's also a lot of ways to meditate. I
mm.
love for my people who just like, they're just moving all the time. They got to be moving. Walking meditation, a lovely, lovely practice that cultivates mindfulness. And while I think the sit is crucial. Walking meditation is a beautiful way where you can just start to notice, how does it feel when my feet hit the floor? What is it like to move through space without needing to land at a destination? Just that simple process is enough to take us from fight or flight to rest and digest to parasympathetic nervous system. And that's enough just to give our vagus nerve, right, responsible
Yes.
for stress response, just a, right? It gives it that relaxation, because otherwise it's just clenched and tight
Yeah.
all the time. Imagine, I don't remember where I read this, but imagine trying to like grow your biceps just by flexing your bicep constantly. Like that's insanity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's not how it works.
It's not how it
It needs
works.
that rest as well. I mean, you a lot of times when we're working out, I used to be a big gym guy.
Yeah.
When we're working out, you're kind of like tearing it. You're tearing the muscle, and then it heals when you let it heal, when you stop moving it. But if you never put that thing down, like that muscle's not going to do what it's meant to do, grow.
Yeah.
Um, Man, that's so great that you mentioned. I'm loving everything that you mentioned there when it comes to meditation. With walking meditation, for me, walking meditation didn't click too much for me. I had to do quite a bit of sitting, and I used a lot of what did get me to click. A lot of my meditation was Sam Harris's Waking Up app. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you checked that one out, but that was when I did the walking meditation on there, and I realized it's actually a profound moment. I think for a lot of people to realize, like, wait, I'm never walking like this. Like whenever you're walking anywhere, it's to a destination. And life is not about getting from here to there. It's the walk in between. Like that's the moments of your life, right? Alan Watts says life is or a dance is not getting from one end of the room to the other the fastest. It's the dance in between, you know? And so for me, it was so it started clicking, you know, when you just I was doing guided meditations, which listener, guided meditations are awesome. They're so great. Like don't think like, oh, I can't do it without a meditation, without an app, whatever. Like do it for years with an app if that's what you need. You know, get the knowledge in your brain and get some experience, and don't, you know, there's no rush here. Um, but so when you're walking, it was like you the meditator or the guided meditator would say, you know, feel every part of your feet, right? Like feel the moment that you are about to lift it up and the moment your heel lifts up, and it's all these slow motion kind of moments, and you'll feel this urge to like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing? I need to do something. I need to go. You need to assign yourself a task. But then it's this hilarious moment almost when you're like, oh yeah, this is the thing. And then when you add up it's a little difficult at the beginning, I think, with meditation to see how it quantifies. But that's where things like, and I'm sure you can attest to this, things like hope and faith. You know, I used to, I've talked about this before. Like I haven't been, spirituality is a new thing for me, like probably 2 or 3 years ago. But when I was younger, I just wouldn't really like listen to anything like religious, or like the words hope and faith are in our culture tied in with a lot of Christian religion, I feel. And so for me, as like, I'm just the cool rebel guy, like I don't mess with that religion stuff. It ain't for me. So when I even hear the words faith and hope or whatever, I throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah,
And
you just write
so
it off.
yeah.
Mhm.
So like reintroducing these things and allowing myself to take a second look at like, wait, what does hope mean? Does it mean what I actually think it means? Like, or why don't I look up the definition and really take it apart from the things that I apparently don't like and see what it means to me? So with, I just want to say, any listener, have hope and have faith. Like if you're going to start this journey, you don't have to worry about the whole journey. Just think right now, just if there's a voice in your head that's like, this is ridiculous, just try a little bit of faith. Try like, you know, this is going to help you. It's hard to know how it's going to help you at this moment, but have a little faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, hope. I did also some research on hope when I was
Mm,
in college.
tell me about it.
And the base definition of hope is seeing a more positive outcome and multiple pathways to that positive outcome, right? So it's just acknowledging this could be better. Something could be better than how I perceive it to be right now, and that there's not just one way of getting there. And that's a tenet of how I coach, of everything that I do, which is it's a multi-pronged approach. For me, I needed, God knows, I mean, for a long time it was therapy. I did so much therapy. I've pretty much been in therapy since I was 15, 14, and almost straight through, probably for like 10 years. And then for a long time, it was yoga, meditation, breath work, essential oils, plant medicine, journaling, mentors, coach it, like you name it,
Yes.
it's there, right? And that it's really the coming together of all of these different aspects. So, and you get to choose that for yourself. Now, what I will say about meditation, I believe that meditation, that the quiet time, especially because of our world today, how it is, just the reality of the world that we live in, we so rarely get entirely quiet time without the information or opinion of anyone else. That if you want to learn your authentic self, if you want to be more of yourself, then, and if you want to connect really to the part of you that is connected to everything, you got to spend some quiet time
Mm-hmm.
alone, like alone as you can be. And it doesn't have to be an hour. I always like to tell people, I meditate an hour a day because this is my whole deal. This
Right.
is what I do. I show up for a lot of people on a daily basis in programs and one-on-one, so that my number one job is to be as clear of a vessel for spirit to flow through as possible. And to me, that means a lot of times, pretty much every day, I meditate an hour.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you have 5 minutes, that is worth something. It's for you never comparing. Comparing is one of the silliest things that we do. It really makes no sense when you think about it. Why would I ever compare myself to someone who hasn't had the lived experience or the DNA or the childhood or all of that stuff to get you to where you are on your journey right now? We all have our paths. It's a beautiful thing. Own where your journey begins. Some people they get to this at 70. Some
Right.
people they get to this at 7. And it's just a beautiful thing to know that there are countless ways to that better place for you yourself.
Yes.
And the last thing I'll say that's like, this totally changed my perspective of meditation, which is you only do a certain number of things every day, right? Most of us, we probably eat, maybe we shower, we sleep every day, we go to the bathroom, these kinds of things. And meditation is like doing any of those things. It's like showering for your brain. It's just that daily process that we require to keep our brains healthy, our
Yes.
mind, our mental state healthy. And so it's not like, oh, if I accumulate enough meditation points, I'll get to stop meditating. I
Yeah.
have only ever meditated more as I have become more peaceful, more myself, all of these things. So
Yeah.
even though I'm blessed enough that there's not a whole lot of stress in my life because I've made a lot of choices to design my life that way, where I get to meditate an hour a day and I get to do all the yoga that I need, and I get to go on walks and hikes and these things that I love and that really feed my soul, that I only meditate more, more and more.
Yeah. I love that. It's funny. It's funny seeing with my journey of meditation, seeing how I go. I mean, so I made the habit quickly. I was lucky enough to make the habit because I was just so obsessed with it immediately. I was like, this is the craziest thing. Like, because I would say like I was a sufferer of my own mind. I didn't realize that I wasn't my thoughts, right? I
Mhm.
also had like a creative, fast ADHD mind. And I thought that it was just being in a stranglehold the rest of my life and trying to like, don't say that, don't say that. What? Like just confused by my own brain. But
Yeah.
yeah, meditation is just so I do at least 10 minutes a day. But it's cool because it's just this like thing, just like you were saying with showering and brushing your teeth. It's not like I have like a giant ritual where I put on my like orange monk robe and all these things. I think when we hear meditation or any of those mindfulness, even we kind of accidentally, or just because that's what we have learned, the little we have learned, we think of this thing that has nothing to do with us. We're like this, what that has nothing to do. That's not what I'm into, but you have a mind, you have, it's just a beautiful thing. I want to, just right before you continue going with your story, can you give me your definition of mindfulness?
Oh goodness, this is always the question. And I
Yeah.
love it because there are as many definitions of mindfulness out there as there are people that have ever meditated. To me, I try to keep it as simple as possible, that mindfulness is present moment awareness through a gentle lens, through a compassionate lens.
Like,
It, it's being here now and loving the moment. That's it. Simple as that. So when people say, "Am I meditating? Am I doing this right?" It's as simple as that. Can you remain here when the mind wanders, as it does, as it loves
mhm.
to do, as it's designed to do? Can you consciously draw it back here?
Yeah.
Draw it into the breath and love the breath. Love this moment wherever you are. And obviously, in some moments, much easier said than done to love the moment. And that's why things like yoga are so helpful with mindfulness, because
Mm,
you're in this uncomfortable pose, right? You're in this one posture that might be really difficult for you. You look over and someone else, oh, they're doing it so easy. And how do they get there? And I want to be there. Instead of just breathing with it, instead of just softening into that moment and accepting and loving, this is where I am at.
mhm.
This is my body right now. And I love it.
That's amazing. I really like your definition of mindfulness. I think that's so perfect. the differences in just from doing any amount of yoga, I feel like the differences we notice, like, oh, geez, I didn't even know that I was breathing from my chest in my mouth every day of all the time. Like you just even when they say focus on your breath in vipassana or yoga, it's really it's almost like your mind always needs a little something, and you're like, hey, just listen to the breath. Then I know you want to be thinking, but let's just try to focus on the breath. And a lot of times, and you can correct me with your definitions if I'm not saying the same thing that you think, but uh, for me, I try to notice the present moment is, for me, it's a lot about my five senses. Like you mentioned dissociation before. And like I said, I had so much association that I didn't even like really know what it was. I had began it at a very young age. Um, I had some, even before when I was 9, I had some trauma that I experienced. And I think that it's when I learned to dissociate. And
Mhm.
so when I learned that I was dissociating, a lot of times it's like, when you focus on your breath, like where do you feel your breath? Is it at the tips of your nose? Is it in your belly?
Mhm.
You could feel all these small micro areas, and there's almost this just multiple times of just like this silliness that you kind of notice when you're in breathing in meditation or yoga, where you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is the thing, right? Like this is what I'm supposed to be. I don't have to think of those thoughts, whatever my
Mhm.
mind was trying to tell me to think about right now. It is so okay and rather important to just feel, what is my body doing? What does it feel like when I breathe? And
Mhm.
yoga, oh man, because with yoga, if you've never done yoga, listener, it's you move with your breath. You in time is different in yoga. I feel like it's just mind blowing. I did yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. If you've ever, I'm sure you've heard of her, Anna.
Totally.
Yeah, I just did. She's one of my favorites. That's what got me into yoga, actually, or like actually doing it consistently, rather.
Mhm.
But I did one of hers this morning. So yeah, listener, yoga. We're gonna keep talking about it, but just go on YouTube to start. Like just do anything. Just get going, or even just lay on the ground for 5 minutes and just start stretching around. Or you mentioned cannabis. Cannabis totally got me. Like if you smoke a decent amount of weed, you realize that stretching after you smoke weed, it feels so great. Just add a little breath work on time, and you're gonna have a wonderful. You're gonna be like, wow, it's been an hour, and my body feels just crazy alive right now. I just stretched. Yeah.
It's the best. And that was another one of my kind of saving graces when I was a school teacher. I thought, okay, when I wasn't going to the studio, because a lot of times I was going to the studio and this just happened to be power vinyasa super heated yoga,
Yeah.
and in Houston like double heated
Yeah.
yoga. So it was definitely not the best to be high at. However, it was totally like high on your own supply kind of yoga and super sweaty, and I needed at that time something really intense to capture my attention and keep me present. That's
Mm,
really good for that. Now I prefer a much different style of yoga, much more breath centric, build your own heat kind of practice, and really, attuning and listening to your body for what it is that you need that day. Maybe
mm,
sometimes you do want to just end up, you know, flat in a puddle of your own sweat, and that's awesome. And that's what you need that day. And then other times, maybe you need some restorative yoga and your body just needs that restoration. So listening to that, and I would come home from school. I remember this so vividly. And I thought like I would just flop on my bed and be like, what? I can't do anything. What could I even do right now? The temptation is just to go, you know, smoke a bowl and watch Netflix. And instead, it was just, okay, roll out the mat, get some music playing. So just take a hit. And it just moves through you. You just start moving. And then, like you said, before you know it, it's been an hour, you're just flowing. And even if you don't feel comfortable enough to take yourself through a flow, there are so many free, amazing resources out there. There are
yes.
so many resources. And there's huge value in having a teacher, absolutely, especially if you have, certain areas that you really want to work on, or if you have old injuries, like please practice safely and trust your body. Trust that when you hear yourself saying, ooh, that's a little too far, listen to that and
Yeah.
have that be part of the learning too. Because really, yoga, the simplest definition of yoga is to yoke, to bring together the body, the mind, and the spirit. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of the pain, a lot of the struggle that we experience is that splintering or the dissection. The body is way back here, the mind is way there in the future, and our spirit is like, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah.
Where are
Yes.
you? I need you here. And yoga is so beautiful for bringing that together. And then it's a lovely space to embody those intentions that we hold. It's a great place to practice self compassion, right? And understanding for yourself. It's a great way to get stronger. It's a great way to work on your breath. There's so many endless benefits that I can't recommend it enough.
Yes.
And if, like I said, if having a J with you is the thing that gets you into yoga, awesome.
Yeah.
Have
It's
at it.
it's
That's like
this one sorry, and it's this wonderful I always again, like I said before, I had my preconceived ideas that weren't super filled with information about like religion or Christianity or like these important, wonderful words as a human that you can learn. I used to have my saying, like I had smoked weed before, just I was a skateboarder in high school. I would smoke weed just casually, but I was just over it. And then after a while, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not a stoner. They're just losers, blah, blah. And you just kind of pick up this idea about what it really is. Then you forget of like all like the long shamanic traditions of plant medicines and like the truth of what it really is, and what it can really be for individuals. And I think that when you can kind of detach your opinions on these sort of things, or detach your opinion on weed, for example, take it away from, and this is just from me personally, take it away from the social party aspect of it. Like don't see it as that. Like me, I started smoking by myself and I was like, oh, I actually am able to slow down and pay attention to these YouTube videos a little more. I'm actually able to slow down and like not get mad at myself that I just spent an hour stretching on the ground. Because there's also this like need to like, oh, what am I doing? Or we also, unfortunately, I think we still see yoga and these sorts of things as, well, it's my workout today. It's my, how many calories did I burn? What did I like all these crazy things, when just like focusing on the breath, where and you notice your mind and you get frustrated and you're complaining, and then you're like, oh, there I am complaining again. That's what my mind's doing. Okay, back to the breath. Yoga, when you find your edges, you don't get mad at yourself or judge yourself like, oh, I'm so not flexible. Oh, that knee hurts and I'm never gonna have a good knee, or whatever it is. You say, oh, that's where my body is. Okay, cool. Send some breath there. Let's keep going.
send some breath, send some love. And
Yeah.
I love what you said, just speaking on plant medicine a little bit more. There was a time when I was taking, God, it must have been, on certain times, like around my cycle, for example, to manage extreme pain. I was taking 4 ibuprofen 4 times a day for like a week,
Ooh,
right? That was prescribed to me. And what that was doing was ripping apart the lining of my gut.
yeah.
And
Seriously.
so to use cannabis as pain management for that time was so, so helpful. And I stopped, I mean, I haven't taken ibuprofen in probably 5 or 6 years
That's
from
crazy. Because I used to take a ton of ibuprofen just because I would drink 3 times a week. Just wasn't like an alcoholic. Didn't like ever get really like, once in a while I'd get hammered. It was just a casual thing. But I
it.
had this thing that was connected to it, where in the morning I just had 4 ibuprofen right next to my bed. It's like, well, I drank last night, and so what I do when I drink is I take the ibuprofen. And you don't think about these things. I love that you said gut lining too, because I haven't been to the doctor for it, but I've kind of deemed that I had that issue with a couple fitness friends, and I'm working on healing that. I'm taking collagen and these sort of things, and all my greens, and I don't take any of the ibuprofen anymore. I haven't for a while. I don't. But yeah, I mean, I think so many people can benefit from that.
Totally.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more. I know we're sidetracking a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about plant medicine. So I it's definitely something on this podcast that I like to explore. I know that some of it gets a little weird. We're like not sure how much we could say, but I think that we live in a world where that's very soon to be changed, and I think that we're going to be almost looking back at in future. I think we're going to look back at all the time that we treated plant medicines as party drug, or like you see trippy stuff or whatever, like the weird stuff about it. Like there's just so much powerful. I mean, we're gonna heal so many people with depression. If you've heard of any of the MAP stuff, or
Oh, yes.
yeah. So okay, give me a little bit. You're definitely on the same vibe. Give me some of your experience with plant medicine, and if you don't mind, what was your? Did you have opinions on it before you had tried it? Like, did you have bad annotations toward it, or?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I when I was growing up, and I think this expression is hilarious, so I have to use it, weed was like the devil's lettuce. Like, weed was like of the devil. It was not like a healing herb to be used responsibly for medicinal purposes, right? It wasn't this, that has so many incredible topical benefits, CBD, there's so much there. So I definitely had a huge stigma. I didn't try anything till like probably mid college, any kind of drugs other than alcohol. Was very super judgy. And I will own that. I will own that I was
Right on.
judgy as fuck.
I was
And
too.
that's part of it, you know what I mean? It's being willing to see something differently.
Mm.
And so, there was a huge part of me when I first moved to LA. So little backtrack, that after Houston, I just decided I couldn't keep living that. That was not my dharma. That was not my highest contribution. I took this yoga teacher training with the woman that was trained by these beautiful husband and wife who ran this program and did work with teachers and school counselors. And that totally opened up my world. And the day after my yoga teacher training, I moved out to LA. And that's when a lot of things shifted. And when I first moved there, I started teaching a lot of cannabis yoga. I taught at a cannabis yoga studio. I taught private sessions with small groups, and it was so beautiful to learn how to infuse intention and meaning and love into every aspect of that process.
Yeah.
To teach people about dosages, to teach people about ratios, and it really just like this educational process, and have it be infused with intention. And it's so funny now because I'll smoke weed and just a very little bit, and we'll have like a psychedelic experience. Seriously.
Wow.
It is
Really connects you to the divine, huh?
it is like direct connection. So
Awesome.
is that the only way? Of course not. Is that a way that everyone needs to take? No. And is it something that we dare not overlook? Should we ever get ourselves off of so many prescription drugs? Yes, we cannot overlook it.
Mm-hmm.
And, mushrooms are a whole other thing. This was, I was probably like, I don't know, early, 22, something like that, when I first had an experience. And it was with a trusted person. This was, it was at, I remember one experience that I had that was like in a very private, beautiful, natural setting. And was just, I found that my purest essence, this is the only way I can put it, my purest essence was just like emanating like the sun from me.
Wow.
I was so filled with wonder at a piece of fruit, something so simple like that, right? Or just breathing outside, right? Having that experience, being so awestruck with the miracle of existence is how I would put it. And the other things that people describe, like visuals and all those things. To me, that's just part of lifting the veil of illusion. That is, we see, this water bottle, it's a material. This is a matter, right? I'm holding it in my hand, except not really, right?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't exist to you. You're seeing it through this screen. This is just this, mass of vibrating, subatomic particles that are mostly space that change when I observe it, right? And then you get into this whole like quantum physics thing, which we can definitely go there too.
Oh
But
yeah, I stumbled into a lot of those too. I love those.
right. But while we're still on psychedelics, it I had those early experiences with a person that, I really trusted, and in some safe environments. I also had some like, not necessarily, I was never like really into partying, but I had some experiences at like a music festival or two
Right.
that were just beautiful, that I found myself intrinsically connected to everyone and everything, crying tears of joy, feeling so utterly divine and so clearly seeing the divinity in everyone and everything around me. And that's the experience that I wish that everyone could have. I don't think everyone needs to have it in that way, and I think it's a really, really, really special thing. So it's something that I have worked on guiding folks through this experience and holding
Amazing.
that space so that they have the opportunity to do it in a safe way, in a comfortable way. Have everyone that I work with meditate for a month beforehand, not consume any tobacco or any alcohol or any other drugs for that matter, and to get really in a clear headspace. I'm sure you've read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, a lot about the psychedelic history and journey, that it's all about your mindset. Set and setting are kind of the
Setting,
two
yeah.
key tenets, that as long as your setting is set up, as long as you're in the best mindset possible, that it's really pretty much guaranteed to be a beautiful, explorative journey. And it's one that I think is crucial and really, really helpful for, as I said, seeing the divinity in everyone and everything.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, I like just thinking of the future, if things really keep going the way they seem to be quickly going with these plant medicines, they're doing great things with MDMA and people with
Mhm.
post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is just something, it's for everybody. If you're a human with a brain, like it's not just for certain types of people. Can you just, this might be difficult to describe, but I'm just trying to think of people who are still in the mode of like, well, I never really even thought about psychedelics. I heard that it's this thing over here, and then I just like never really thought about it again. And maybe they're feeling more open-minded now. How could seeing the divinity or seeing your like the true oneness of this, how would that make you feel better? Like, how does that help with depression and
Mm.
anxiety? Like how?
I love that. To me, there's a couple of ways. One way is that it lets you get out of your own very limited viewpoint. So quite physiologically, it opens up new neural pathways. And that's one of the most helpful things for getting off the rut, the train track of depression and anxiety,
Mm,
right? It's like such a familiar pathway, and that our brain has a natural pruning process, and that when we don't use certain branches or pathways, they get pruned. Right,
yes.
they get cut off. So this is a way to open up some of those new neural pathways. And as we talked about with hope earlier, if you can see that there's a better way and that there's a couple of different ways to get to that better place, then that will pull you forward. I truly believe that that can shift the entire trajectory of someone's life.
Yes. Oh man, that's like a great example. When you're talking about the neural pathways too, I've used this example before, and I think that I've just heard it, so I've repeated it. But thinking of just as simple as sledding down a hill, like a blank. It snowed overnight, and the hill that you sled down, you keep just going down the same way, and that's kind of like been your life. That's You're digging this big old rut, and after a while, you just like you're to the point where the walls are really high. You got snow on either side. You just keep diving, and you're thinking the same thoughts, and you're having the same habits, and you're like, I don't understand what anybody's talking about. Like why? Like you just kind of fall. Like anytime you get a little bit out, you just kind of fall back into that. It seems like. So I think psychedelics are a lot of these practices that we've discussed. I think they allow you to just a few seconds of, if it's not noticing that you're even playing in the snow and like what is snow, like this really wide thing, it at least helps you like peek over the edge of that wall that you've created from sledding there for so many years, thinking these non thinking the same thoughts that are not helpful. I had at the beginning of my journey, I definitely had, um, I mean, I had like this spark of like, I need to fight this nihilism. Like I need to give it like one more, like, cause I was very suicidal. I was like, I'm gonna,
Mhm.
I had pretty much unconsciously decided like that's what's gonna happen. I just have to kind of figure out how it's gonna go down, whatever. And I had these moments of like, dang it, man, what is going on? Like I was sitting here in this room, looking at the wall. That's all the writing on the wall is just like, what? Like, why am I doing this? What is happening? And I think that I talk about that, but I think I was like lucky to have that. Like whatever happened in my life, whatever like
Mhm.
divine will of something, like at least gave me a little bit of strength to, even though it felt fake and it felt fickle and um, it felt like I was lying to myself, but I was like, man, something isn't going right here. Like this isn't, I should want to live, I should want to. And so what was happening with me is I was stuck in that divot and I had no idea, but I was trying these different things. I started with cannabis. I started, yoga, meditation, writing, everything, journaling, like you mentioned. And it was, it was a little bit, even though it felt fake, even though it felt fickle, I was like, yeah, I feel kind of mostly sad, but I'm going to give this thing a try. It gave me a little bit of edge to sneak up and look over that neural pathway, that
Yeah.
sled line that I had made for so many years. So I think, and that's again where hope and faith come in. Just even if it's just a couple days, it feels fake. Explore this stuff, or if for it not feeling fake, well, you can take psychedelics and just rips you right out of that sled thing. So
Totally. It's like, what sled? There
yeah,
was
it's like
never any
you
snow.
thought you were in
Right.
snow, you knucklehead. You are snow.
Right. Yeah. You're the snow. Everything else is right. It's all
Right.
together. Uh, and thank you for sharing that. It's so, so powerful because I feel that, I was actually writing on this yesterday. I was feeling a little scramble brain and I said, oh shoot, I haven't meditated today. Meditate and then not, maybe probably 30 minutes later, just pouring spiritual
Mm,
downloads, which for me, those occur like just if I'm writing, it's like something is moving the pen and I don't know what it is. It's just going, going, going.
right.
And it's really this idea that so much of what we perceive in our lives, it's just coming from this really, really limited perspective. And if we're willing to have enough faith or trust, if that word is more helpful
There
to
you
you,
go. That's, yeah.
to say, you know what, I'm willing to admit that I don't know everything. If we're just willing enough to admit that and say and have enough faith or trust to say, I don't understand everything and I don't know exactly how this is going to go, then that to me, that's enough wiggle room right there to really break through, to really break some ground on like whatever next path that it is you take.
Yeah.
And I love, you're sharing about the same thoughts again and again. We think somewhere between, experts say somewhere between 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and that 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts.
The same
We think
thoughts.
the same thing over and over again. I'm hungry. Fuck this. Oh, why can't I feel tired. What about this? Work, work, work. Right? Gotta get it done. Gotta get it done. Like these
That
just
narrator.
whoo, just on repeat the tapes. And so to me, it's no wonder that we feel like this broken record on the track, skipping and skipping. It's just because we repeated a bunch of things a bunch of times. And we as humans are blessed and cursed with, as I said before, metacognition, to think about how we think. So can we try on, like it was a jacket, a new idea, and say, okay, I'm going to feel this out. Maybe it's not totally my style. Maybe it's not like every jacket that I've had before, but maybe it's just different enough to where let's just see. Let's see how it goes. And that is, to me, one of the most pivotal mental shifts that I made, conscious thought shifts on my journey, was going from a space of pretty much everything is out to get me, the world is against me, things don't work out for me, that kind of thing, to everything, even the tough stuff, even the challenging stuff, is ultimately working out for my highest good. Right. Everything is working out for me. And to shift to that reframes every moment of every day. It says when you're late because you ran into 7 stoplights, it has you think automatically, wow, what if that just saved me from getting into this horrible wreck with that person who sped through the intersection? Or what if I just needed this extra moment in the car to finish the song that I'm jamming to? Or something, things as from the highly meaningful and life-altering to the very small and still potentially life-altering.
Yeah. That's so powerful. It's synchronicities, that's where you can see them. I mean, I think just shifting into, I like to talk about a simple example that I had heard before. Basically, say you're an adult, you have a young daughter and she's about to turn 16, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to look for her a new car. She's going to get her driver's license. And you're like, she wants a red Honda Civic. That's all she wants. That's the car we're going to get her. All of a sudden, you're going to see a red Honda. You're going to start seeing red Honda Civics, like maybe for sale. Whereas before, if you had never had the thought or knew that your daughter wanted a red Honda Civic, you may have passed them every day, multiple times, And I think that when you can flip your perspective to, I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna see it, I know that this is working out in my best interest, you're gonna start seeing these red Honda Civics in your life of oh, that thing happened to me. Well, I'm looking for it. I'm drawing my attention towards it. So I know that before, maybe I would think that this is a terrible thing. Maybe I would think that this is the worst thing ever and I'm the victim and of course this happens to me again and again. Or you could say, okay, this is that thing that I know that I was looking for. I was ready for it,
I'm laughing so hard right now because the example that I always use when I say this is red Honda Civic.
What? And I wonder if we heard, I feel like, did somebody else say it or do we just...
And this is where I have literally no idea because I read so much. I listen to podcasts. I have a lot of beautiful, brilliant friends too. Yes. I'm like, did I hear this in a conversation? Did I just think this? But I remember it because I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, yeah, it would be like if you started seeing red Honda Civics and then you just start seeing them everywhere. And at the end of the conversation, he goes, you know what's hilarious about this? And I was like, what, Marcus? And he goes, I have a red Honda Civic. I was like...
It's so crazy. I don't know. I mean, as much as you I always want to latch onto these things and I'm like, that must be that thing. I love this optimism of, I'm okay with not knowing. I like where that's going. I'm just going to trust it and continue following it like this. I don't know. That's just incredible. That's so cool. What are the odds, Red Honda Civic. Well, hey guys, listeners, look for your red Honda Civic.
Yes,
keep your eyes out.
And the cool thing is, and I love to bring this in, because my approach is also very I call it heaven meets earth. I think the spiritual stuff, you gotta have a perspective on spirit and the interconnectedness of our lives and the world, right? And we're humans. It would be silly to deny that. We are human beings. Mm-hmm. And so really to link this, we have a part of our brains, it's right at the brainstem, that is the reticular activating system. And what the reticular activating system does is it filters information. just like our eyeballs, right? All day we see countless images, we hear countless things. And what the reticular activating system does is helps us determine what is important, because it's just too damn much to focus on. We can't focus on it all. That would be impossible. We would explode. So
Yes.
what that helps us do is we start noticing something, noticing. For me, it started with numbers, right? A lot of people talk about numbers and synchronicities. And now everywhere I go, 4 4, 4 4 4s, 3 3, 3 3 3s, 1 11, 11 11, all the just repeating numbers that I see near constantly. Every time I drive, when I look at the clock. And some people say, okay, well, that's great. You see repeating numbers. You trained your reticular activating system to notice repeating numbers. Well, what does that mean? And this is where I think a lot of people, and no fault in this, jump to Google, right, and say, what does it mean when I see this, right, without first, and this is what I would recommend, looking inward and saying, what do I feel like this is trying to say? And to me, those repeating numbers tell me a few things. The world is full of patterns. Some of those patterns are downward spirals, right? And take us down. And some of those patterns are upward spirals and lift us up, right? And then also, to me, these repeating numbers, I choose and feel deeply that they mean for me, you're on the right path. The timing is working out. Trust the timing of your life. It's always working out for you. And that didn't come from anything that I looked up on the internet. That came from me introspecting and really sitting with it and feeling, okay, I'm seeing this everywhere. What is this? What does this mean for me?
Yes, that's so important. I really like that you ask yourself that. You're like, because I've even done that myself. You watch YouTube videos or whatever, and you end up Googling, you're like, oh, it means that your angel is watching over you. And like, a lot of that is great. And a lot of it lines up with certain people's beliefs, and it just like clicks to them. That's so great. But I really believe, I always say, you give things power. I think I'd said that earlier even, but like, that's kind of how it is for me, I believe too. When I see number synchronicities, which I see all the time now, to me, it's not that Google, like I don't go like, oh, it's the whatever, like 333 means this. I literally go, it's some sort of like, everything is going to be okay. Like whatever's going on, it's going to be okay. And it's cool. I actually used to write, and I do still sometimes, depending on what I'm going through, I'll write little notes to myself on my hand. I'll write, everything is okay. Or I used to be actually overly analytical myself. I was like, I would write like, talk slower or things like that. I kind of flipped it to be like a little more positive, but it's just like that. Like, when you imagine you're having a bad day, just like, I think a lot of the reason why people get tattoos and stuff too, you're having a bad day and you're like, oh, I'm all caught up in all this thing. And then you see your tattoo that just says, love yourself. And you're like, oh yeah, everything's okay. Love yourself. Even though this is going on, that's true. Cool. It's happening, but love yourself, or everything will be okay, or just be here, whatever it is. When you see like the synchronicities, the numbers, the red Honda Civics, it could be those, everything is okay. Oh yeah, I just remembered. I mean, imagine how much better you're going to feel instead of all those 70, how many thoughts a day do we have? 50,000, 70,000, 70 million, whatever.
Somewhere in there, 50 to 70,000. It's a lot of
so
thoughts.
many. I mean, think about like in all the repeating thoughts that are just saying that you're unworthy and you can't do this thing, and like, I don't really think that thought anymore. That's kind of a silly thing, whatever. I mean, what if you inserted at least a few times a day where you see something on your hand or you see a number that matches up, and it kind of replaces one of those thoughts. It says everything's going to be okay. It's almost like a wake up call throughout your day,
For
a lot of power in that.
And, with us, of course, lately spending a lot more time in our homes, I like to say that your home is kind of like your vision board. Surround yourself with the symbols that are meaningful to you. Surround yourself, I have a lot of times clients put sticky notes or write on their mirror. Just, a lot of us first thought when we look in the mirror is like, oh, like not good, right? We lean that way. So this is part of the balance, is saying, what if just first I thought, damn girl, or like, I love my body, I'm thankful for my body, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing what and appreciating ourselves. And from that space, that's what allows us to notice and appreciate and honestly not judge and criticize other people. Because if you're criticizing yourself for something, if you're hard on yourself for something, odds are you're criticizing, you're judging other people, whether verbally or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also, it's kind of eroding your compassion, right? That self
Ooh.
compassion that we have feeds our compassion for other people, our ability to empathize, our ability to see other people through loving eyes and trust that they, as hard as it might be to believe sometimes, are doing the best with what they have at this time.
Yes. Yeah. This is just like you, my friend. As far as you know right now, this is your first time doing this life situation. Like just like them. They're just trying to figure this out too. I wish that we could all like just have this one moment, this like fairy tale in my head is just like everybody's like, oh yeah, we just remembered that we all were thinking that each other said we were perfect. Like nobody is walking around saying that they're perfect and they have it all figured out. I mean, some people are, sure, but for the most part, everyone's just kind of stumbling through this thing, trying to figure it out in the same ways you are. And when you could remember that, it's like, oh yeah, what I was thinking about isn't as important, or my judgments are, I can let those go, and I could see this person not through my judgments, but through who they really are, you know?
Yeah, I dream of that. I dream of that. The moment, the collective moment when we just all decide to have a little bit more grace for
Mm,
ourselves. I feel just the energy of, maybe I've just been spending a little too much time online or something, but this wanting to just like jump down each other's throats, like for every little thing. And it feels like, have we just lost all sense of compassion and grace
mm-hmm.
for each other? And because the genesis of that is losing compassion and grace for ourselves, knowing
Yes.
that part of the human experience, and this is what I believe, and this is, I believe, a healthy way to frame our existence is that humans are not broken. Humans, part of humanness is bugging things up, is choosing things for the short term payoff instead of the long term, or is part of humanness is having an ego and
Right.
battling with that. And so I think that when we choose to remember that we are
Mm.
whole beings, and that perfection was never, like you said, part of the equation. That was never a guarantee of a
We forget
perfect
that.
life. It's silly. It's so silly.
Yeah, I love it. You just said that. I had a quote that I had taken from I did an Instagram dive before this. You said, "You are not something broken to be fixed. You are a garden to be tended to." I really like that. That stood out. And you mentioned ego with that as well. I had heard this thing that this reminded me of is the ego doesn't want to be destroyed. It wants to be held. And I was like, oh, that's helpful because I went through this time once I discovered like how much my ego was running my life and what it was. And I was like, oh my God, dude, I've got to get rid of my ego. I got to destroy it. I've got to like, I'm trying to stomp out this thing that I didn't understand yet. But now it's like, oh, okay, it's just a part of this experience. Like you can hold it and you could like, I mean, you can almost like teach your ego how to, I mean, it'll still, it's not always under your control in a sense. It's hard to conceptualize your ego as it's like this separate being thing or something. But yeah, I just really like how you put, you are a garden to be tended to. You're not something broken to be fixed.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
so great.
you would never say like, oh, this is the perfect garden, right? Gardens are different.
Yeah.
In different climates, there's different things that grow more naturally, right? Some plants need a little bit more water, some plants need a little bit more sun.
Yep.
And if you saw, I imagine this, if you saw a perfectly manicured, trimmed, down to the T garden, it might not be the most beautiful. It might not be, hospitable to the plants and animals that allow it to truly thrive, right? I
Mm,
mean, all gardens need a little bit of weeding, need a little bit of pruning, like I described, that internal brain pruning process that happens naturally, that part of the, certain plants blooming in certain times and seasons, right, teaches us there's a time for everything. And
Yes.
I love the garden metaphor because it's really, there were some seeds planted in all of our gardens that we never chose. And if that's grown and we've watered that thought or idea or construction or concept, that, yeah, we might have to do a little bit of digging and tilling of the earth to really
Ooh,
uproot it.
love it. So
And that's
good.
what I love to do. That's what I love to do with people, is reflect to them, okay, it's okay if you didn't choose this belief. A lot of us didn't choose our beliefs.
Yeah.
We just believed, we saw our gardens around us and said, oh, this is the way the gardens are around me. And so really just taking the time to actually get to the root, which means getting your hand, it's a messy process. Nothing in life is like perfectly ordered. It's such an illusion. It's such bullshit. It's harmful and toxic to us that, digging in the earth, uprooting that and seeing, okay, now from this place, what do I choose to plant here? What are the thoughts? What are the ideas that I choose to nourish and water, every single day, or check on every single day, make sure they're getting the right sunlight, right? The right light and energy poured into them. Oh, if there's an infestation, how do I handle that? How do I bring balance to the entire ecosystem? And we're seeing this on a very collective level, that in many areas, basically there have been certain kinds of plants that have been destroyed, which means this certain population of animal can't eat, which means that this other population of animal, because they can't eat, they don't have enough to eat, or they have too much to eat, so they're overpopulated, right? And it's seeing that it's not separate. And that, like, this is kind of going on an ecological level now, but seeing ourselves as separate from the environment is our biggest downfall.
Ooh, tell me more. Keep going.
That we are one and the same with it. That it's just as silly to say something like, the environment. We're fooling ourselves. It's us. We are the environment.
How do we breathe right now without the trees? Get rid of all the trees. How are we going to breathe?
This is our garden. And then it's like the garden of the collective consciousness, right? The garden of the earth includes the plants and the animals.
Yes.
Right? And all of, I think about bees a lot, for example. Like, bees have stingers because they need to survive. And a lot of them, I can speak from experience, have had a bee. One time I just had this bee like crawl around me for like 5 minutes. Seriously, it was just on me for just checking things out. And without bees, like, okay, well, there goes all our food. There goes 70% of the world's food in bees. This tiny thing that we get like annoyed by.
Right.
Or we're like afraid of, or whatever.
We need to protect ourselves from it. Put up a blockade and like, attack it or kill it or whatever. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I don't want to be hanging out with a bee, but I am slowly getting to where I'm not uncomfortable by insects.
It's a journey. You start to see like who's left with the disgust and the fear when you're like, oh, this thing. Once again, easier said than done. I haven't gotten to the like picking up the cockroach level, but I have really worked on not jumping to, I need to destroy this thing,
right,
which used to be it, which is like such a silly fear. Not that there aren't animals that can potentially harm us, of course. That's
right.
a possibility.
You can literally just be like, oh, okay, well, there's that spider doing the thing that spiders do. I'm going to just continue doing the thing that humans do. I'm going to human while he spiders, like it's so simple. But it's such a fun journey to learn. So the oneness of everything, of course, studying any sort of like Hinduism or Buddhism or any of those, or I'm not sure exactly that Hinduism points at it a ton. I haven't studied a lot of Hinduism, but essentially, like really understanding, conceptualizing like the we are one. There are certain meditative states that you can experience this, but I had strangely enough, just on Netflix, there's this documentary called One Strange Rock with Will Smith. Have you seen that one? He like,
Is it an episodes or is it one whole thing?
I think it's episodes. It's episodes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I've seen an episode or two because you better believe that is those kinds of things are my shit.
Oh, yes, I love a good documentary. Nowadays, we have such great ability to make fantastic documentaries. But the first episode was, I think that was like my favorite. But I remember like they were really describing like the breakdown of like here's how air works and here's how like the diatoms are formed that make the water and it forms it like it, and you're just like, oh my God, what? Like it's that thing where like we were talking about earlier where it makes you feel small. And then
Mm.
it's almost, you almost have this laughing moment of like, holy crap, like, why isn't this the most known thing ever? Of course, there's a lot of new science and they're able to explain it better. And now, they have a famous actor, Will Smith, who's like, we can connect with a little bit more. Maybe it's better language or more casual. So, yeah, anybody who hasn't seen One Strange Rock on Netflix, if you want to understand, like, when we're saying like, we are one and this whole thing we're in is connected, Anna was talking about the difference between like, we separate our environment like it's something that's over there, has nothing to do with us. And should we focus on it? Should we fix it? Should we work on our environment? It's like, it's us. It's like how we do this. So we should, like, but yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about so we kind of left off on you had gone to LA. You were starting this journey, but you've been a coach and a yoga instructor now for a while. I mean, like, tell me about some of that. Like, what have been your experiences? How have people been doing since the quarantine? Even like, how has your practice changed since the quarantine? And then also, just because I don't want to forget before the end of this at any time, we're in no rush. We've got plenty of time. But if you have like your own videos and your own YouTube channel and your own site, make sure we can get to like watch your yoga videos and learn from you more because I want to make sure that's out there.
100%. So really I describe it kind of this way. When I first moved to LA, a lot of my healing happened in the physical body. Of course, it's all tied in, right? It's not separate. However, yoga, I was like, I just want to help people feel better in their bodies. People are so uncomfortable in their own skin. They feel like something's always wrong, or if they have pain, pain is very root chakra, right? It's very difficult to elevate levels of consciousness if you are in constant pain. Pain will keep you really stuck in, and for anyone who's listening, you're like, I don't know about chakras. Root chakra really represents kind of survival and base level security. You can also kind of compare it to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is the base level is survival, right? So if you're in survival mode, it's really difficult to contemplate things like self-actualization, right? And self-awareness. It's so grandiose and you're just like, my just back hurts every day, right?
Right.
So I really wanted to help people with that. I was teaching a ton of yoga, and as I think it's a really smart move when you're kind of starting on your own business or you're doing the entrepreneur thing, is not to just like shift over all your chips at once, right? So I had a couple of different things going on. I wasn't just teaching yoga at this point, and that was a lot of what I was doing. So I had, a couple of other things, supplemental income, this kind of stuff, and really loved it and quickly discovered that it is pretty tough to teach like 16 yoga classes in a week. You think that I don't know, maybe you think that sounds like a ton. It is a ton. It's
That's
a
a ton.
lot. You're driving around, you're planning out your sequences, you're making playlists, you're catering to, all different kinds of audiences and experiences, and it's just a lot. So I started to get more into meditation. I'm so thankful. I was actually working the front desk at a yoga studio that I taught at, and I loved this place. It was so nurturing to me. It opened up right around my birthday, a couple of months after I moved to LA, and it was a mile from my house. It was like the godsend. I was like, this is the place. And at that place, when I was at the front desk, there are hours that go by without anyone coming, walking in. So I would read and I would read all of the books that they had. Incredible, incredible books. One that I can't recommend enough if you feel like you've got trauma stored in your body, which all of us, pretty much all of us do, is The Body Keeps the Score.
I was hoping you were saying that book.
Yeah.
I have that and Maslow's hierarchy of needs like 6 feet away from me. So
It makes me so happy. I feel like I've so many times bought copies and then just given them away right away that I don't even know if I have a copy right now. I'm like, I think it's somewhere. I don't know.
bless people who do that, by the way. That's like the best trait, to give people books. When people give me a book, I'm like, oh my God, like that's you, like, okay, I'm meant to read this.
I'm like, I'm about to send you a book. or
Hey.
or like 3 books. It is my favorite thing. It's like the spreading and cultivation of knowledge and awareness. It's planting new seeds in people's garden. And it's like, hey, try on this plant, like really let the daylilies blossom, Yeah. So as I was doing that, I was working still a lot. I was leading online coaching programs. And this whole time I'm being coached and mentored in coaching. I took my meditation teacher training with this amazing, amazing man named David Nickturn, also at the yoga studio. They brought him there. And it just started to open up so much for me. I learned more about Buddhism. I would highly recommend The Wisdom of No Escape by Pema Chodron. Also a beautiful, beautiful book.
I've never heard of that.
Meditation. Maybe that's the one I'll send you.
Oh,
and it's perspectives on how to live meditation, right? Off the cushion. It's like, what is meditation in motion in your life daily look like? Practicing, cultivating loving kindness and compassion, right? Or noting the breath, noting your thoughts and judgments as they surface. And all of that, it got me meditating really consistently. Doing that program, I started meditating, and this is a great place to be is, 20 minutes 5 times a week is a beautiful meditation routine. That's like, I think it's pretty doable. And even if you have to break it up, 10 minutes twice a day,
right,
5 times a week, do it. If you have to be lying down, if you want to be sitting up, if you want to be walking, like just do it. But have that be the dedicated time. And that really, it opened up so much spiritually for me. I started to, learn more about just the fun other elements of spirituality, like cards. My friend actually at this yoga studio is like just the epicenter of so much of my like quantum leaps in LA. Because there was different kinds of people we had yoga, Pilates, and meditation. And so these Pilates teachers, there was an older woman who gifted me this deck of cards called the medicine cards. And it's all about the lessons of animals and taken from Native American folklore that really teach us and give us medicine for how to live, how to connect to spirit in all things, how to see the lessons of the ant as just as valuable as the lessons of the panther, right? Something like that. So that was a whole other element that opened up for me, was seeing how along my path that animals have always been communicating with me and sending me spiritual messages. That was so fun and so wild to open up to, and that played an element. And I discovered that, as I was learning to coach, and I had always had like the coaching teaching perspective, right? Like when I was in college, I was a writing coach and would coach people through academic goals. So I've always been really attuned to that. And the way that I was leading programs and working with my mentors and coaches was a very masculine way. It was very linear, very goal-centric, very kind of structured. And that is really, really helpful. It's a really helpful thing. It's gotten our society very far. It's helped us gain a lot of ground. And as all beings are, we need that balance of the more masculine energy and the feminine energy. Mm-hmm. So I started to lean more into my intuition, and I started to open up to different practices like ecstatic dance and ceremony and ritual, and just discovering that powerful feminine energy as well. Along with that, manifestation, reading every book I could get my hands on, taking all the courses, like just soaking up so much rich learning, because now I had time and energy to do that.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind that I can make my schedule for the day and that I can plan my business around the different phases of my cycle. And when I'm in a really extra intuitive space, I can do big picture visioning. And, when I'm on my moon cycle, I can take days at a time to rest like I really need.
Right.
And learn to work with my body, learn to work with the things that I love to do. So what I've seen in that time is incredible. I've had clients who have completely healed themselves from autoimmune disorders. I've had, folks who have grappled with non-epileptic seizures through mindfulness, discover a dramatic decrease in their seizures, in their ability to just live day to day.
That's so awesome.
So there's like that whole spectrum. And then now, I've been leading Mindful Living Mentorship, a program that I run for about a year, and just seeing how really simple commitments and to your body, to your mind, and to your spirit, the accountability to meditate on a daily or at least multiple times weekly basis brings so much more ease. Right? I think we focus a lot on like reducing stress. I'm like, no, I want to bring ease to your life. I want to bring joy to your life and nurture that. And the stress will just melt away. That will happen.
Yeah.
So what I've really seen, during quarantine, like right before quarantine, it was such an interesting time. I lost kind of two of my biggest sources of income. So the yoga studio that I was teaching at closed, which was really, really sad. And I think a necessary loss, necessary part of the process, a chapter completing. And a meditation client, I would go and lead meditation at this office. And they too, the business was struggling. So they were feeling all of these impacts of COVID and on the economy and whatnot. And I really thought to myself, I've been doing this thing for a while. I've been coaching. I have been loving serving my private clients. I've been creating programs. I think at this point I could really use a business coach. And I stumbled upon this woman. She was pretty much one day away from starting this 6-month mastermind. And this was started at the very beginning of March. I had never invested this much in a program like this for myself, for my business, no less. And it was terrifying. It was one of those terrifying growth steps that you're like, I know I need to do this, but this is still really scary, but I know I need to do this. Yeah. It's like good fear. And I know like we have all felt that of the next step because it's growth. So what I discovered in that process was I wanted just to learn, how can I continue to serve better? How can I serve my clients better? How can I make this business when I'm working on sustainable and scalable and eventually employ people and support, a network of people that want to live an aligned and soulful and beautiful life. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I remember I started around like right at the beginning of quarantine. I felt like usually I'll have like a month or two in between those programs. And this was like 2 weeks. And I was like, you guys, I don't care. We need this now. Like, let's do this. Right. And what I discovered was that people were really, really receptive. People were really open to taking a leap and trusting themselves to say, I know what I need. And honestly, I need some community. I need some support and I need some structure. I need something to support me, to hold me up. And that's what that program was. And to hear people say like, I managed the quarantine and everything that came with it so much better as a result of this, as a result of like some of the simplest tools. I really believe in making it simple for people. It doesn't have to be complicated. Breath work, meditation, reflection, journals is like what it is pretty much. And it's just the best thing in the whole world. It's like it's the thing that gets me to like leap out of bed in the morning. And now I just started this. Basically, now I'm leading a 6-month mastermind for 6 women. Oh, for to who really like. My intention was like a lot of people are like I'm over 2020, right? People are like done with the year, and I'm like, boo, it's certainly not over. Like we're in a way, it feels like we're just getting started. So I really wanted a container, a space for people who, these are a lot of people who have been in work with me to continue to grow. And, it's called Soulshine. Soulshine Mastermind. It's bringing your fullest self every single day to uplift everyone around you. And a lot of these women there are, they've studied functional medicine or they're health coaches, or some of them are yoga teachers. And then some of them are just people who have discovered and seen this work for themselves. And they want to know just how to go deeper. How can I more fully live in my purpose? How can I have more fun or feel more confident in sharing the things that I know have helped me and that can probably help other people? So that's like, between that and moving to Joshua Tree, and we haven't even talked about this, but I also, I won't say met. We met about a year ago when we're best friends, but I'm now with my absolute soulmate, twin flame, love of my life. Wow. That all happened in quarantine. So I'm over here sitting like, this is the best year ever. I have like no hatred, no qualm with 2020, and acknowledge it's brought up a lot of painful stuff. We like asked for clarity and we got it. And clarity can be tough sometimes. The illusion, the veil being removed can be painful. It's like blinking your eyes at the bright sunlight.
Yeah. Tell me about it. We all have our dark nights of the soul that we experience in strange ways. And a lot of the shadow work, brings up these things in different ways. Man, that's your story is just so great, Anna. Just thinking about like, so thinking about what we have now, with technology, like the ability to really like even doing this, like you're in Joshua Tree right now, and yeah, like it's this bummer thing that quarantine happened and like we're not able to like people can't meet in person. I can't do as many in-person podcasts and all these things, but we also are able to do these sort of things more, and we're also able to do, when it comes to healing and healing our mind, there's so many different things we can do, and we can find it online. We can find it on our computers. We can like master classes and like these retreats and stuff, and the masterminds that you do. Like that's something that is kind of new. Like the last, people have been doing them for probably 10 years or something, I'm sure, but it seems like in the last 5 years, you see just different levels of them. I see Tony Hawk, like nowadays you can go online, masterclass.com. Tony Hawk teaches you how to skateboard, or I'm spacing his name, the famous chef who's like kind of an asshole, but he's like a really good chef. Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, he has his own masterclass. Like you can literally just learn directly from people. Like they don't have to have grown up in your same community. They don't have to be a family friend, like you could just be drawn to these certain ways of learning, and you can learn in different ways. So what, could you just explain to me, imagine that the person has like, they haven't heard of a masterclass or a mastermind or any of this, like, so, like don't give away all your juice, of course, but like what exactly do they do, and how does that benefit them day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, if there's kind of 2 ways that we grow, right? Growth is part of us naturally. We are made for growth, expansion, learning, right? Now it's a lot easier, like you said, with so much technology, with so much knowledge widely available, right? I believe that there's 2 ways you can grow. You can grow like no coming to consciousness except through pain, like like the universe whispers is like, hey, you've been stuck in this situation for a long time. Like maybe it's time to move on. Come on, like they kind of like give you nudges. And then it's like, hey, wake up, right? And then it becomes louder and more uncomfortable. So we can grow through that way. And I chose that way for a long time, unconsciously chose it because I didn't know there was another way. There's another way that we can grow, and that is growing through joy. To me, the elements of growing through joy are that you have a container for a specified amount of time, right? It's too much for us, like talking about like, grid and like long-term goals. Like we get really demoralized when it's way too far in the future. If it's like 5 years, right? Or 3 years. And that's why, a lot of programs like Mindful Living Mentorship is 7 weeks. It's 7 weeks because that's about the time it takes to really instill a habit, right? Soulshine, it's 6 months because I really wanted something longer term and sustained, like what I had experienced, which is compound interest of growth over time, just like, dollars in the bank. You see what little deposits each day bear and huge harvest, huge rewards, right? That sustained commitment. And then also making sure that your growth is sustainable, that it's not, I will never promise anyone a quick fix, a magic pill. Like this is, if you want that, this is not the thing for you.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna be work.
I really believe that it doesn't have to be struggle bus, right? You don't have to be the victim. You don't need a victim story to grow and learn, but that really, if you desire to grow and you want to grow in joy, choose something that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, like this program where basically I teach you all of the things that I have done over the last couple of years so that this year has gone how it's gone for me, right? So really practically how to deal with your doubt and your fear. We work on unmapping and unwiring or unlearning triggers and conditioning, and then how to consciously program your subconscious, how to program beliefs so that those are the beliefs that you choose, right, for yourself to cultivate a life that you see. And then also how to live from a centered and aligned place so that everything that you're doing, from the daily micro to the macro, to the big actions and the big leaps, are in alignment with what your soul values. Not what the world says you need, not what your ego wants, but what truly your soul space is here to bring. You've maybe heard it as your dharma or your purpose, right? Your life's mission, all of those things. Aligning with that. I also teach very practically my process, which is, bits from Abraham Hicks and bits from Joe Dispenza and science and spirituality and just my own experimentation and exploration to learn how to consistently and confidently manifest and create a reality that you are in love with. Yeah. So that's really what that's about.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, yeah, that's perfect. I love that you had a chance to explain it, because we can really see it as like something new and something special. Like it really is like this cool opportunity that we have. Like nowadays, I was talking about Sam Harris's Waking Up app.
Yeah.
Like oh my gosh, like if this was the 60s, I would have had to, all right, well, I got to quit my life and I got to go to the Tibet and I got to go across the mountains and I got to say the right passwords so they don't say like, oh, the guru's not home. And like, and I got to work there for 6 months. And then maybe he's actually been here the whole time and I didn't know it was him. And all these like, like we've heard these enlightenment stories of going to the mountain. And now like we have advanced so much and we're like, we can help each other in such incredible ways. We can speak each other's language too and really connect on like where we're actually at. And I mean, technology is quite the thing. It's painful in a lot of ways. I just watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix last night, which is that was like hard to watch, which I recommend. If anybody should watch that, you should definitely watch it. That listener should watch it. But I think that we also can see these things as wonderful, powerful tools as individuals for, I mean, the fact that you can connect with someone through through the laptop, through a camera or through phone calls, or you have access to so much more than we used to have just, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I think it's so great.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you're doing what you're doing too. And I
Mhm.
think that, like you have really shifted your life and experienced these things and always been kind of like it seems like you're just looking for like different ways to serve. And that's just a beautiful thing. And the most beautiful thing is that it's full circle. Like it gives you a good life. Like, like you can live through service instead of like, what can I get? And then once I get enough and I have enough extra money and I don't want any more Ferraris, then I could donate some money to charity. It's like, no, you could start and you could like, how can I serve other people? And like life just starts sprinkling some stuff on you. And it's like, here's how you can serve and you're going to love yourself for it. That's
Oh my
awesome.
God. That's to me, it's such an impactful way to live through the lens of every single day. I meditate and I ask myself, and not my ego, I ask the deepest part of myself, how can I serve? How can I contribute to the world today? And a lot of times, the message is just share your story and give people that hope and that trust that, what, this person you see right now, unrecognizable from years ago, from like, I always say it's like my hot mess, stressed, anxious, depressed Anna was like then, and like unrecognizable from the woman that you see before you. So if you're feeling like, God, there's just no way that I could see this getting better for myself, like I really just, if there's anything that I can say is it can and will get better. Choose to look for the good. Choose to see what you can learn from the tough stuff and know that change is life. Life is change and change is life. Like that's just all part of it.
100%. Okay, Anna, we're getting up here in time. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I'm so grateful for Chase. Chase is just such an awesome person anyway. He's like so inspiring. And anytime I got to work with him, I was like, this guy is impressive. But I'm so glad that he connected us. So glad we got to have this conversation. Give me just one more time before we send it off here. Give the listeners, where can they find you? What's your Instagram handle? Website? You have a website up yet?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So thankfully it's all condensed and streamlined. My website is www.annacantwell.com. That's ANNACANTWELL. My Instagram is probably where I'm most active. It's I am Anna Cantwell. Super simple. And then that'll have links to my website. I have a Facebook community where I lead live meditations every week. And in the works, in the process, is a membership where I'll have all my yoga videos, all my meditations, and then all this fun, energetic, spiritual stuff too. That'll be available super, super soon. And I have also a round of mindful living mentorship. It's coming up and it will start on September 27th. You can take it from anywhere in the world. It's all over Zoom. We meet for an hour 15 once a week for 7 weeks. It'll bring you right up to right before Thanksgiving, just like the week or two before. So if you're looking for some consistency and some community, those are the two, really three promises. Clarity. If you're looking for some of that, that's a great place to start to get into meditation, to build these habits that support you living just a wonderful life. And thank you. Thank you so much, Jake, for having me. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, this is so great. This is super cool, Anna. Well, listeners, take care of yourself. I'm going to end this recording, but Anna and I will talk for another couple minutes. But listeners, drink water, stretch. Don't be afraid to challenge your own beliefs and explore yourself. Like you're here, and that's okay. And you could just figure this life out, and you could live a life where you love yourself every day. It's clearly possible. Like there's so many people popping up like Anna who are just like, hey, trust me here. I'm happy, and you can be too. And I think that when you hear people share their story like that, it really sparks this thing within each of us as individuals where we're like, maybe I can do it. And hey, listen, listener, you can love yourself. All right. Peace out. Have a good day, listeners.
Better conversations with ourselves.
Knowledge is